Hello and welcome to another episode of Financial Quotient, FQ, the show that discusses the need for women to take better, greater charge of their own money and their financial destiny. Now, in the last couple of episodes, we have looked at several ways in which women can boost their own confidence when it comes to money and their own financial quotient. We've discussed various aspects, whether it's credit lines, borrowing, and of course, things like different asset classes, as well as different age profiles and what women, according to their age profiles, perhaps must keep in mind when it comes to their personal finances. Now, today we are going to talk about some key money management mantras that women across age categories should really keep in mind. These are your sort of, thumb rules, a checklist that you should always keep handy. Joining us on the show today are Aditi Kothari Desai, Vice Chairperson at DSP Mutual Fund, and Jyotsna Singh, Business Head at Kotak Private Banking. Ladies, thank you so much for joining in. Really appreciate you being with us. It's always great because you come from the financial world. You are women. You work with women and men across the client spectrum, so your advice is going to be very, very handy. So appreciate you being with us on the show. I just want to start with getting some broad thoughts from the two of you on what you have noticed with respect to women and maturity levels, awareness levels when it comes to financial products and financial housekeeping, really. So, Aditi, I'll start with you because I know you folks at DSP did a survey on this recently and there were some interesting findings. So, fill us in.
Yes. What we've noticed in our findings was that, and which was really surprising, was that, parents talk very differently to their daughters about money versus their sons. And majority, 70% of both male and female respondents said that they would advise their son and daughter differently when it came to investing. And 41% of parents said their own investment strategy would be different if their child was a, female versus a male. So a son versus a daughter, which I found a bit shocking. So I think it all starts at home. It all starts in the beginning to try to give that confidence to women. And then, not shockingly, as a result, we realize that more men make these investment decisions on their own than do women. So it was some 65% for men and 44% for women. But frankly, I don't even believe that, because when you look at the total number of women in the mutual fund area, it's roughly, and it's around 20%. But if you call certain phone numbers, we've done that in DSP, to ask the women that, or to tell them we're very proud that you're making your own investment decisions. When they pick up the phone, it's the male. So it's the husband that picks up the phone because his number is given. So he's just putting it on the woman's name. So we can't really assess how many women are really doing it for themselves.
Very interesting, and I think it really addresses the core of the problem, or the heart of the problem, that awareness needs to start early. Jyotsna, come in on this. What is it that you've been observing around you over the years?
So let me start by saying good afternoon. Pleasure being here today. Clearly, I think what Aditi said is pretty much bang on, and those are the observations that we have too. Having said that, I'd say that the good news is that things are changing, and things are changing fast. I guess it's also to do with, a lot more further education that's happening as far as women goes. And that, of course, adds to the awareness and the fact that more and more women are joining the workforce. When I talk of the workforce, it could be joining the family business, starting up a venture of their own, or just, shattering the glass ceiling, having joined the corporate world. So I think that is something that we're observing. In fact, I'd say at Kotak Private Banking, we've also seen more women sign up as clients over the past few years. And for the remaining families, of course, women are now wanting to be involved as part of the decision making. They want to know what's happening. Interestingly, they not only want to know what's happening as far as financial decisions, etc., go on matters related to money management, but even beyond that in terms of succession planning, etc. So clearly we are seeing a trend. Might I also add that, this trend is cutting across both geographies and generations. What do I mean by that? So we're seeing this change in not only the metros, but I'd say even in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. And also, of course, when you look at the next gen and compare it to, the other generation, the older generation, things are very different over there. So I'd say definitely an improvement and a positive trend.
Okay, that's heartening to know, actually, and it's important to also acknowledge that it's not all gloom. There is a silver lining, and that women are beginning to perhaps, be willing to take greater ownership. Let's take a step back before we come to the recipe or that checklist that we women need to keep in mind. It'll be great if you ladies reiterate the importance of why we need to sort of lift ourselves up when it comes to personal finance and women. We keep, reiterating that on our personal finance shows, but you're practitioners with years and years and decades of experience. So, Aditi, let me toss it to you. Why is it important that women start changing the status quo?
Because more women, as Jyotsna said, are earning money. It's your money, you need to invest it. So don't give the reins to someone else. Two, I feel, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to put it, or sadly, divorce rates are increasing. And divorce rates are increasing. And so women cannot rely on their husbands that maybe like they did earlier to help them with their own investments. So they need to be more independent. Also, women outlive men. Okay, so women are then going to be on their own to make their own investment decisions eventually at some point in their lives. Fidelity, a survey in America, said 95% probability of a woman having to do that at some point in her life. Also, today, life insurance has really penetrated, and so they could be the beneficiary of that. Also, women are inheriting money. It's not just like the son of the family that is getting the money. Women are inheriting money. It may not yet be equal, but they are getting something in their name. So it's their money. They need to know how to invest it. And the last reason I tell people, which is getting very important, that if you're in a marriage, doesn't mean you don't discuss it, doesn't mean you hide something from your partner. But if you let your partner make the decisions, whether the man allows the woman or the woman allows the man, I think it could lead to unrest at some point if your risk profiles are different. The man may say the market falls, I'll put more money, even more money. The woman doesn't want, she's nervous when the market falls, she doesn't want to put more money, and it's her hard-earned money. So there should be two separate pools of investment according to your risk profile if it is your money that you have earned or inherited. And I think that will make for a happier marriage.
I think those are some very, very important points that are not perhaps discussed as often, Aditi. And I'm glad you're bringing that up, because a lot of this is still under the surface, underneath the surface. Society is changing, and the approach to money needs to change with it. So very happy that you're highlighting that. Jyotsna, come in on this and tell us the trends that you notice, because you and your entire team deals with, of course, very high net worth clients, the private banking clients, versus, say, I mean, I don't know what feedback you may be picking up from the retail wealth teams. Is there a difference in terms of which strata you come from that perhaps plays out with respect to how women across the economic strata are looking at money?
Not really. That's an interesting question you asked, but I would say the strata doesn't play such an important role. It could in some cases, but I wouldn't want to define it on the basis of strata, because you will find women coming from, say, the middle strata of society, etc., middle class, being far more independent than maybe in some cases women who are coming from the the ultra HNI or HNI families, etc. So I think it's more to do with the fact that it's high time things change. And I think the only constant thing in life is change. And why not this? Women are today so much more independent than they were earlier. We all know that. As far as money matters go, I find it ironical that we're even discussing something like this, for the fact that, I mean, it's important, but the irony of it is that all of us on this show, and I guess a lot of our guests who are listening in, would have actually grown up, seeing our mothers probably be the smartest finance ministers at home, managing the purse strings, etc., budgets against expenses, and in that also probably managed to save some money and invest in gold and all. Fast track and come to the future today, and you'll find that there is so much of wealth creation that women are actually responsible for. So if I just look at, say, the Kotak Private Banking Hurun wealthy leading ladies list of, say, 2020, the top 100 ladies there were on an average about 100 crores per head. Whereas exactly a year later in the 21 list, that figure average was about 300 crores.
Wow.
So you see 3x in about a year's time. Now, the point is that here are women actually creating wealth and such significant pots of wealth. Yet, even in the case of these women, very often you'll find that they will shy away from managing the finances themselves. They may be very involved in the running of the business, etc. And that's the point that I was trying to make, that I don't think it's necessarily to do with what strata of society you come from, but it's to do with a host of other factors. And I think, again, Aditi had mentioned a few things which are extremely relevant. So I think there is absolutely no manner of doubt that women today have to address the elephant in the room, which is money management, and it cannot be brushed under the carpet anymore.
Absolutely, well said, both of you. So before we get down to the checklist that we all need to keep in mind, let's address another elephant in the room, which really is the sheer amount of complexity. With every passing year, complexity in the world of money and finance only increases. Products, high decibel, high noise promotions, and whether you want to buy this insurance or that fund or an ETF, before you can learn one thing, there are 10 new things in the market. And maybe that's something that kind of keeps women away as well. How can the industry address it, and how can we women investors address it and not let it get to us, really? Aditi, you want to go first?
So, I do feel that things are complicated. I'm not going to say, I'm always correcting people in my own office saying, don't use those words. Don't even use SIP. Use even a systematic investment plan. How could I make it easier to even explain that very word? Let's stop using acronyms. Hashtag stop using acronyms. And I'm not only saying that for women. I'm talking about all beginner investors. We want everyone to be an investor in India. Okay, and we have to encourage them to be investors. You think women are scared? I would say a lot of men are also scared in the beginning. We feel the men are better investors. That's not true. They, and maybe men in the finance world find it a little easier. But I've met men artists and men craftsmen and architects and doctors that also could find it intimidating, because this is not their world.
Yeah.
We need to make it easy for everyone, and women are no exception there.
Sure.
So I don't want to think of women as being not as smart as men. They are. Let me tell you, I went to a co-ed school, and that's not true. So women have to learn at the same level. Let's make it easy for everyone.
Sure.
Take out the jargon. Let's explain things in an easier way. Let's not make our articles very lengthy.
Yeah.
Let's not try to add big fat words, in our, even where English is concerned. We don't need high level English in our articles.
No, absolutely. Aditi,
okay.
Absolutely. I take your point that simplicity should be for everyone, and why just women alone? Absolutely. That's not what I was driving at, but I think one thing that came out of our earlier episodes, earlier discussions, we had Miss Arundhati Bhattacharya on one of the chats as well, and I think the common thought was that given the multiple roles that women have to juggle with, maybe a man can come back from work, has like 3 hours to spend looking at a portfolio, looking at a new product in the market, but the woman, just by sheer nature of how we still live our lives, is probably juggling 3 other roles at the same time, and therefore maybe the challenge only increases. Jyotsna, quickly your thoughts on this, and then we'll take a break and come back with our action plan.
So I'd say a couple of things that keep women away from the F word, and I'm only referring to financials, all things financial, please, is one, of course, is that I think we probably make it out to be far more complex than it really needs to be. And I would agree with Aditi's point that, the use of jargons and so on and so forth. And to that extent, we as industry participants are probably, also responsible for having created this sort of fear psychosis a little bit. But on the other hand, I think it's equally important for women themselves to realize that they don't really need to be a PhD or a super specialist. And the point that neither do men for that matter. There are domain experts to do the heavy lifting. Let them do the heavy lifting. And in fact, in addition to people, there are today so many tools and platforms, etc., available. Idea being that they should be involved, they should be invested, they should be confident of the big picture, if I may say so. And of course, the second thing is that, let's not shy away from the fact that culture and conditioning also have, a role to play. And as you mentioned that, Ms. Bhattacharya also talked about it, that we have been part of a patriarchal society with very stereotyped roles, if I may say so, which are, cut out for each one. So I'd say it's even almost taboo to discuss matters relating to finance in some households with the women, let alone consult them or involve them, right? So, yeah, I think those would be primary reasons for why it is perceived to be so complex. I agree, it is complex. But, I'm just saying that, like I said, they don't need to get into the complexity
Sure.
part of it. But clearly need to have some sense of what's going on.
Sure. I mean, I know as a person who's been in financial media for the better part of my life, it's not rocket science. As long as we put our brains to it, spend some time understanding the basics, I guess it can be done.
Get the basics right. That's all we ask.
Okay, let's take a very quick break. We do have to keep time. Aditi, I'm going to come back to you to complete that point after the break, and then we'll get to the action plan. What should women be doing when it comes to their financial quotient? Welcome back. You're with us on Financial Quotient, and we're discussing the checklist, the action plan that women need to keep in mind when it comes to their money and the financial standing that they have in their own families. So ladies, back to you. You've made some fantastic points that we should all remember. Now let's come to that action plan. Aditi, you go first. I have my notepad out. I think pen, papers, tablets. We're all listening.
First action plan for a woman, especially with all the apprehensions that you quoted, is get yourself a trusted advisor. If you can go out and get yourself a trusted jeweler, which you do, similarly, get yourself a trusted advisor. Jewelry, you think, is also for investments? over generations, think of it in your financial planning as well, and for your financial assets as well. Think long term. If you're thinking equity, don't get swayed by markets ups and downs. The market will go up and down. Your investment could lose up to 20%. In the long run, it has been proven though that your investment will do well if it's in equities. If you're really, really scared, make sure your risk profile, in any case, rather, your risk profile should be done by your investment advisor. Know yourself before investing so you know how much risk you're willing to take. Equity can go up and down more. Fixed income is more stable, but in the long run, equities will give you better returns. Try to figure out how much you have of risk tolerance. And also, depending on your age, if you're very old, even if you want to bungee jump, and you're living on a retired salary, don't try to take too much risk. So these things a financial advisor will help you with.
Okay, got it. That's a great starting point. Jyotsna, weigh in on this. What does your checklist look like?
You know, there are many on the checklist because I always feel that one keeps learning as we go along, right? Markets and life keeps teaching us, so we can't really stop learning. Having said that, I think for me, the first one is believe in the power of compounding. And, you know, I often say this, and that Einstein has very rightly said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and he who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. So I think it's really important to understand that. And of course, related to that, then once you understand the power of compounding, you kind of start a little early in the day. And then, of course, this whole thing, especially when it comes to women, sometimes this topic comes up on, you know, how much do you really spend and how much do you really save, etc. And there again, I'm hugely sort of guided by what Warren Buffett has always said, that don't save what's left after spending, spend what's left after saving. So I think that's another important thing that one must always sort of keep in mind. Risk appetite, of course, Aditi talked on, but I think that's really important and probably underestimated. That's really important for each one to know their risk appetite. Don't get too colored or worried about what others are doing. Don't try and copy their approach. Good to observe them, probably learn from other people's mistakes, but you really don't have to touch the fire to feel the heat, as they say. And know your own world. So, you know, one size doesn't fit all. What works for you doesn't work for somebody else. And of course, you know, we've all grown up hearing the tale of how Lord Ganesha got into a race with his brother Kartikeya, right? And, you know, Kartikeya sort of went around the world and Lord Ganesha just went around his parents 3 times and he won the race. So knowing your own world is you have to be honest to yourself. That's really important. I'd say asset allocation, hugely underestimated. 2 simple words, asset allocation. And the power of this is such. In fact, there's a lot of global studies that sort of evidence the fact that when you really look at a contribution analysis, there I go using jargon again. I'm sorry. When you really look at it and say that, you know, what contributed to the return, more than 90% plus of the times, it is actually the discipline of sticking to asset allocation. 2 simple words, but hand on heart, really difficult to adhere to. And again, linked to that, I'd say, you know, the portfolio approach, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Pretty simple, like you said, no rocket science there at all. And for me, I think I would say the SIP. And when I say SIP, I'm not referring to the mutual fund kind of SIP, but I'm saying stay invested patiently. See, once you know what your financial goals are, you know what your time horizon is, etc. You make what you believe to be the right set of investments along with, you know, advice from whoever you trust. Then after that, don't get too caught up in the headlines. I'm not saying ignore what's happening around you, but really, you know, cut out the noise to the extent possible. Stay invested. And you know, I think, again, Leo Tolstoy in his book, War and Peace, has beautifully said this, that the 2 most powerful warriors are patience and time. And I'm a huge believer of that. So those would be some of my favorite mantras.
I think that's really, really helpful. You both have put out some amazing thoughts, very simple thoughts, and ones that are actionable. I think everybody can take something, if not everything, away from that. So really appreciate you joining in today, taking out the time and helping drive home the message that all of us women perhaps need to listen to and need to remember. Really appreciate you being on the show today, Aditi, as well as Jyotsna. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Financial Quotient. We'll see you again next week.